Welcome to Friday, the 5th of February, 2021. Well, there's a lot to unpackage here with today's updated podcast as we've been talking all week, a lot on the table with Arctic air, Pacific moisture, and some big changes in the weather across North America. Winter is definitely making a comeback. We're going to experience more winter for most of the nation than we've had all winter long, really. We'll have more winter over the next 7 to 10 days than we had really in most of December, most of January, and most of November. Arctic boundary is slowly moving into the region. It's kind of like molasses, just really slow oozing of the Arctic air, but it is moving. Stock growers and travelers, be prepared. Livestock interests, especially anyone who's starting calving operations, you're going to experience some really cold weather. This is especially true in the northern areas, at least initially, north of Interstate 80. Now, next week, the Arctic air will make a bigger push to the south. So over time, everyone will be impacted. Travel has already been impacted. Closures on Interstate 80 because of wind and snow and ice and nasty conditions, and travel will be impacted as well. Do expect fluctuating temperatures. Boy, this is the weekend, and next week is when you really want to watch your thermometers because they'll be up, they'll be down, they'll be sideways, every which way. You'll see those temperatures going, especially if you're near the Arctic boundary. Big differences depending on where you live. So folks watching this podcast in eastern Colorado or western Kansas or New Mexico, you're going to be mild all weekend and you're going to say, what Arctic front? For folks watching this podcast up into Montana, northern Wyoming, western South Dakota, yeah, you'll know very well what we're talking about, and that would then go east into the upper Midwest and Great Lakes as that cold air spreads east as well. Coldest temperatures for the Rocky Mountains and the High Plains going to be next week. The Arctic air is going to get a bigger push, and it's going to stick around. There's nothing coming in to sweep it away. So while I do not see any record-breaking cold, it's going to be as cold as it's been next week over all areas. The mountains are getting snow right now. They're going to get more snow at least through the weekend. That'll be good news for the snowpack, which needs a boost. This is where we are today. Looking at the 500 millibar chart showing us where the upper level features are. You can see the big trough now getting dug across the western United States with the polar vortex here stretched out in kind of a north-south fashion. You can see the penetration of the deepest, coldest air right now is here on the surface, then stretching westward. Notice this green boundary, the green between the yellow here. What this is representing are upper level temperatures and where the coldest air is. Really, the coldest of the Arctic air is going to be in these light green colors where they meet blue, but even where the green line meets the yellow here is kind of the area where it's going to be getting the coldest. A couple of things I want to show you what's going to help drive the Arctic air more south. We have two upper level waves coming up over this high pressure ridge that will go up, over, and down. And what this does, these little disturbances, these little low pressure systems along the jet stream, there's a little one right here as well. What they do is they help bring the trough further west and south. As these waves come in, they re-energize this. And also keep in mind that this vortex of air up here is spinning counterclockwise. So there's a little bit of a wobble that will take it back west. So this is as of this morning. And we'll see what happens with the upper pattern as it unfolds. Snow through Sunday is going to be pretty good, as you can see up in the mountains of Colorado, Wyoming, the northern Wasatch Front, the Bitterroot up here along the Idaho-Montana border, Yellowstone Park. Look at Montana. You know, Montana with the Arctic boundary settling in right here, where you get north of the Arctic boundary, when Pacific air overruns this Arctic boundary like this, you're going to get snow. So Billings, up to Great Falls, boy, you're going to really get into the action. Sheridan to near Buffalo as well, this northeastern corner of Wyoming, even the northern Bighorn Basin, you're going to get some snow along with the Arctic air. The Bighorns, which really need some snow, we'll get some big snow out of this. Look at the Black Hills. If you're south of this Arctic boundary, you can see you're going to get snow, but just not very much. And then that Pacific moisture is bringing the mountains some snow. But notice this wedge here, we are going to get a downslope. and you're just not through the weekend going to get any weather in places like Denver, Colorado Springs, along I-70 to Burlington to Goodland and points south. Now that may change next week with the colder air pushing south, but this is where the snow is going to be through the weekend. These are temperatures. I'm going to do what I did yesterday, kind of step you through what the temperatures look like going forward. You can see that by tomorrow morning, the single digit to lower teen temperatures are right there. Then here are your sub-zero temperatures in the gray by Saturday morning. By Sunday morning, notice there's a little movement of the Arctic air, and there's a little bit more of a penetration to the higher terrain of the North Platte Valley of Nebraska and Wyoming by Sunday morning. But notice the Front Range of Colorado, southeastern Wyoming, the southern panhandle here, the Arctic air is just not getting that push south yet. So basically, if you're along north and east of this line, you're going to be in the really cold air this weekend. Going forward, though, we're going to see a bit more of a push. Notice how this pattern here becomes more east-west. So what will happen is we have a piece of the Arctic vortex, the polar vortex, breaking off here with some cold air. We have this vortex of cold air here. With it stretch out more west, what will happen as this rotates counterclockwise, there's going to be a spoke right here of Arctic air late Monday and the Tuesday getting more of a push south into the region. And you'll see this. By Monday morning, the temperatures that are going to be in the single digits and teens now pushing closer to the Continental Divide and getting into northeastern Colorado, getting a little bit deeper. By Thursday, the elongation continues of the Arctic air, but it also has this tail that comes back to the west. Underneath this tail, the Arctic air is going to remain. Then this Arctic air will sweep through the Great Lakes in New England, causing big lake effect snows and keeping the air mass very, very cold, really across the whole northern tier of the country. This Arctic air mass is going to impact us, but it doesn't look like much. But this is the backside of the Arctic air that's going to have a chance to push into the area. And this is what you get. By Thursday morning, you can see that the Arctic air does start to get a little bit west of the Continental Divide. And we've got a lot of sub-zero temperature readings across Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska. You can see some minus 20s up there in the Dakotas. And you can see that the colder air is penetrating more south into the panhandle of Texas. We're not going to break any records here. It's hard to break cold record temperatures in February, but certainly this is the coldest it's been all winter. And it's going to be cold that sticks around. This is all the way to next Sunday and Monday. These are temperatures that are going to be out there by next Sunday. It could be this cold. Notice these would be temperatures for forecasted highs on February 14th. So really cold. And the reason is there's not a Pacific storm or front to take the Arctic air and push it out completely. So once it gets cold, it's going to stay cold. Temperatures over the next 10 days look like this across North America and up into southern Canada. You can see an extensive area of blues and purples and greens. Anything blue or green, purple is far below average temperatures, and you can see most of the nation going to be well below average for the next week and a half. Snowfall-wise, pretty good. Look at New England. Look at the Great Lakes. The lake effect snows really kicking in the most they've been all winter long. Going to see some snow partially in the Appalachians. Look at this down here. As that cold air spills south, going to have to watch out for ice and snow and fog and just not nice weather down there. We'll need to watch the potential for this snow here along the Arctic boundary to be a problem for I-80 travelers as we get into late this weekend and into next week, as there will be snow along that Arctic boundary. And as you can see, the mountain areas are going to continue to get snow. Look at Montana. Montana, northeastern Wyoming, western South Dakota, this area right here is going to be getting quite a bit of snow along with those Arctic temperatures. So if you're going to look at an area in this region that's going to have the highest impacts of snow and cold, it's going to be right there. Stock growers in those locations, you really need to prepare and be ready for the cold. And you can see this nose of snow getting further south as that Arctic air wants to push more south next week. I updated you at the end of last month with what the global temperatures were like based on satellite drive data. We told you that December saw a big drop off in the global temperatures based on satellite data. And for January, the global temperature anomaly was only 0.12 degrees Celsius. So you're looking at the coldest temperatures globally, the biggest drop since going back to several years ago. So these colder ocean basins, these colder Pacific waters especially, but elsewhere across the globe, with that cooling of the ocean basins, that is affecting the global temperatures. So that's something that we'll continue to watch as La Nina continues across the Pacific. Have yourself a good weekend. Be ready for the cold. Bundle up and stay warm.